bird's eye view. Can you hear it then? Okay, good. Very good.
I have one more question.
Yes, sir, please.
The question that I have is actually too long to write on the card.
You said I want to take you to the stairwell. Is it for Alderman?
Excuse me?
Is it for the Alderman?
It is. Yes, it is. It is.
Okay, so you're going to want to take that stairwell right there. Okay. Anybody else have a real long question? You know, the card's two-sided. Okay. All right, so our fifth ward candidates are Robin Rue, to my left, your right. Mr. Daniel, and somebody told me Danny Featherson. Ms. Carolyn Murray. Misty Whitney. And last but not least, Mr. Carlos Sutton. 2 to 3 minute introductions, folks, starting with Robin Rue.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. It's exciting that we have this much interest in civic engagement. I'm Robin Rue. I'm a candidate for 5th Ward Alderman. I am a native 5th Ward resident, born and raised here, and have gone through district school, started at Faith Christian Academy, continued on to King Lab, and finished at the high school. I've raised my children here. I moved back 15 years ago to give them the same great experience that I had here, growing up right here, even on this stage at Family Focus, going through programming here. I've raised my children. I live at the 2000 block of Dodge. They've both gone through district schools and have graduated Evanston Township. Currently, I'm working to provide opportunities for economic development through job creation and business development, working as a program manager of Sunshine Enterprises. And I really enjoy that work. Additionally, I've also worked with to provide affordable housing. I've constructed or renovated many homes, about 24 of them here in the 5th and the 8th Ward. And through that work, I was able to create jobs and also provide affordable housing where there is a need. That's one of my biggest concerns. Right now, we've had better than 3,000 Black Evanston residents that have had to leave the community because of lack of affordable housing and lack of livable wage jobs. And I want to continue my work and make sure that we can provide those opportunities so we can keep our residents here and continue to enjoy the diversity that we celebrate so often here in town. In addition to that, I've worked hard in neighborhood safety. We had a real issue, an epidemic of gun violence a couple summers ago in our neighborhood. I mobilized and founded our block club, and I worked real hard holding the foot patrol and the PSC officers, working with Chief Eddington to make sure that we have an increase in presence. So I want to continue that work. I have an appointment to MWEBE, and there I work to make sure that we expand and increase opportunities for minority hiring and contracting, also with local employment opportunities. So I've been working, and I plan to continue to work. I want to work to engage the community. I want to be your voice on city council. I want to encourage you to participate more and provide opportunities for us as a community to serve on committee where the real work is done. So those are some of the things that I plan to do in addition to what I've done already. I'm asking for your support. I plan to earn your support. These ideas are based on feedback from you. I've been working and speaking with community organizations. I've met with clergy. I've met with business owners. I've been at the doors. I've been phone banking. I've been working for the last 15 years, and I hope to continue that work as 5th Ward Alderman. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rue. Mr. Featherson.
My name is Daniel Featherson. Didn't know really what to expect coming out here, but I'm glad to see that so many people are taking an interest in our ward and with the mayoral candidates and taking this so seriously. It shows the dedication and the will of the people of Evanston. Grew up in Evanston most of my life. I went to Walker School, went to Chute Middle School. Mr. Ruff was my assistant principal there, and a great role model, a great guy. Graduated from Evanston Township High School. Played a lot of sports there, played basketball. A lot of people know me for playing basketball there. And with that said, I decided when I moved back to Evanston, when me and my wife decided to move back to Evanston because of the school system and because of all the opportunities Evanston has recreationally, I decided to start my own youth program. So I started the Evanston Youth Athletic Association, a youth football and program, and we also do basketball and track. And we work with roughly somewhere between 80 and 200 kids every year from ages 5 all the way up to 13, engaging in sports, and we mentor the kids. And we do a lot of tutoring, helping the kids with school. And we work with a lot of kids who have single parents, and we kind of fill that role as, the father figure kind of role. And what I love about it is the spirit of the kids. It gives you a lot of hope for the future. When you see the kids, I love walking down the street and hearing my name, not as Mr. Featherson, but as Coach Featherson. Brings a lot of pride when I hear that. Working with the kids has made me want to do more in the community. I also work as a real estate broker, and that's where I see a lot of opportunity in Evanston, and especially the Fifth Ward. With a lot of the properties, I started in real estate, flipping houses in the south suburbs, and when I would flip the houses, I would put renters in there, and I would sell the houses. That led me to decide to go ahead and get my real estate license and start doing that myself. And the opportunity I see in Evanston is being able to purchase houses, putting guys to work, fixing the houses, learning trades as far as carpentry, plumbing, electrical work, and also being able to put more quality homes in Evanston. I work with a lot of investors, and I have a lot of long-term investors that want to invest in the Fifth Ward, but because of some of the red tape and some of the tax issues, are very reluctant. And I just feel like from my spot as Alderman, I can help them maneuver and kind of put those guys at ease and be able to bring quality homes to Evanston, jobs and training to a lot of the citizens of Evanston, guys who need it, and older gentlemen who need it, maybe some guys who've been in trouble and have checkered passes that want to, get back into the workforce. I want to be able to provide them somewhere where they can help. My time's run out, but thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll wrap it up. Next, we'll have Ms. Carolyn.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carolyn Murray. I'm a candidate for Alderman for the Fifth Ward. As you know, I've serviced this community for over 12 years under the leadership of Alderman Holmes and community residents like yourself who've come out to meet with us every month across the street at Fifth Ward. I've addressed these issues as the co-chair for Fifth Ward West, so I've talked to you many a time in the Fifth Ward about issues and concerns that you have. I've been able to amplify that and represent you on a national level by invitation of Congresswoman Schakowsky to go to Washington, D.C., where I held open conversations with First Lady Michelle Obama, President Barack Obama, and that gave me virtue to express the interests and the concerns that we have overall in the community. I am a Navy veteran. I hold a government security clearance. As you know, that's a hard thing to maintain, but because of my work with military officers, I've been exposed to very crucial and critical conditions throughout the nation. I say all of this because I do believe that strong families make a strong community. It's very important for us to work together to get the essential things that we need in our community done. One of the priorities I feel that we should address is workforce development for those ages of 18 to 30 that are commonly committing crimes in the city that we see every summer. Well, I take that back, with the crime growing the way it is, we're seeing it year-round now. I also want to increase the economic development for existing businesses that we have so that we can improve and be attractive to the city for new businesses to come to our ward. Equity, I believe that equity is looking into re-examining our city budget to look at how we can fairly use city dollars to express the interest of all of the taxpayers, that the money be distributed fairly for our community. I think that lastly, safety. I believe if you pay mortgage for $1 or if you pay rent for $2,400, you have a right to feel safe in this community. As you may know, I lost my son to gun violence. I've advocated in this city for some of the most successful programs that we've seen, and the 2 gun buybacks was one of them. I've hosted candlelight visuals. I've done National Night Out where we've gotten all the clergy here in the city together. And what was so meaningful about that situation with my son, which was very painful to my family, I had the clergy come out. We're talking about the mosque, Church of God in Christ, Pentecostal, Baptist, the synagogue. And they came to me and they said, Carolyn, what can we do for you? And that's what we need to do to win back our community, to make this a better city. Thank you.
Misty Wittenberg is our next candidate. Please welcome Misty.
So I am not from Evanston, but the neighborhood I grew up in was a lot like the Fifth Ward. We were mostly low-income families, like my own, pockets of poverty. Our challenges were mostly in our limited opportunity in employment, low education rates, poor health care and public safety. My mother suffered from chronic illnesses my entire childhood. I had 2 uncles that were killed by gun violence. I was a teen mother. I was also somebody who was able to use public supports like subsidized childcare and WIC vouchers so that I could work and go to school and graduate, most importantly, with a degree. So I know how to navigate the public assistance programs, and I know how to help other people do it. After college, I got my dream job as a magazine editor in New York. I also, with my ex-husband, became a first-time homeowner, and at really poor lending rates that I really understand at the height of the housing bubble, so what could go wrong? But following a divorce and magazines tanking, I was laid off, and I owed more on my house than it was worth. So all of a sudden I was starting over again as a single mother, facing an impending foreclosure. I had to uproot my kids and move to a new town where we didn't know anybody, and we didn't have any supports. I didn't have any credit score, and just start over again with all of those invisible barriers that are facing low-income families and keeping them from going ahead, which are the things that I want to address, as well as strengthening the supports for people who are vulnerable to upcoming state budget cuts and federal policies, whether you are a low-income person on social service programs or you're a person of color and now have federally sanctioned discrimination against you, whether you're a religious minority or a member of the LGBTQ community, or a fixed-income senior who had worked decades to own your home, and now you're at risk to have it be priced out from that home. So At the last forum, I mentioned one of the barriers being banks, how the banking system, as we have it, gives you money when you have money, and charges you money when you don't have money. But there are other things we need to address, like without as many employment protections, what does a single mom do when she has to stay home with a sick kid and doesn't have that income, or is then at risk of losing her job? These changes, they're within our power. Evanston is in a unique position. We have the resources. We have a lot of people in our community and a lot of organizations who want to help solve these problems. We just need to get everyone on the same path. And we can make Evanston lead the progress that we need to see in our ward, and our city, and our country. Thank you.
Mr. Carlos Sutton is next.
Welcome to my neighborhood. Having gone to this place and this school from kindergarten through 6th grade, the first 7 years of my life was in this building. My father attended here. I know you. I know most of you, and you know me. This is not a time for the 5th Ward to be in a position where we look at all the problems without coming up with some solutions. Everyone knows the problems here. They're as great as you and I, who, however, can work collaboratively with the mayoral candidates, with the clerks, to bring these things to fruition. I think with my experience in the community as a retired teacher, both in elementary school and at the high school, working in the Peace Corps where our slogan was, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Also being involved in churches and Sunday school, my whole life and my whole family's life has been one of service. Service to you is my main importance. Yes, you came out in large numbers and voted for Obama in 2008 and 2012, as blacks have never done before. But you don't call Obama at night when the police are in your neighborhood. You don't call the county commissioner at night. You call your alderman. And I want to thank Dolores for being in that position to establish that relationship where we can serve you, and you can relate with us, support us, and we look forward to giving you continual service and support in this community. Thank you all for coming out. Welcome to the Fabulous Fifth. This is not a beauty contest, it's a duty contest.
Let's give all our candidates a big round of applause. Mr. Carlos Sutton, Mr. Whittenbell, Mr. Danny Featherson, Carolyn Murray, and Ms. Robin Rue. Thank you so much for those impassioned introductions. I have a question here, and by the way, does anybody still have questions? I think the ladies are still rolling. I see one upstairs. If anybody, just raise your hands if you need a card. Here's a card in the middle of the room that needs to come up. I have a question for you guys, and I think some of you may have answered it already. How long have you lived in the 5th Ward? And I'm going to hold the mic this time. I'm going to be Oprah.
I lived birth through graduating high school in '93, and I relocated back 15 years ago.
Thank you. Mr. Featherson.
From birth to the end of high school, a few years after high school also, and I moved back in 2011.
Ms. Murray.
From birth through, I might have been out several years in between, so maybe with the exception of 4 years outside of birth.
Thank you. Ms. Whittenbell.
I'm the newcomer. I've only been here since 2014.
Thank you. Mr. Sutton.
Thank you. Our family started in 7th Ward, and around 1914, our house was picked up and moved to the 5th Ward in 1927. I am currently living on Darrell, where I've lived and paid property taxes for the last 60 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton. I did say that some of us had already answered the question, but Mr. Sutton, your response and many of your responses makes me think, I believe out in the lobby there, I know that there's always a community table in the 5th Ward and all of our ward meetings are some information. And some of the information out there is from the Shorefront Legacy Center. Shorefront used to be right here in the corner of this building and now is on Noyes and Ridge, and captures the African-American history and legacy of African-Americans on the North Shore, Evanston and throughout the North Shore. So please take some of that literature and some other interesting things, or if you have something to share, you can leave that. We'll have some time for some announcements at the end, so if you have anything, put it on your card. As an alderman, what is your plan to address affordable housing within the ward? I'm going to start with you, Mr. Seven.
The best way for affordable housing is to have an affordable job. We're underemployed in this community. My main concern is for the elderly in this community at this time. So my priority will be for older people to be able to get access to loans to replace their roofs, their basements, and also to maintain their homes. We've lost too many homes in this community from not getting support from the agencies that are available. So we will lay our priorities, one, the elderly, and secondly, to make sure that people have affordable jobs so they can afford the rents in Evanston.
Thank you, sir. Misty?
So the city has started to address really pushing forward with affordable housing, and that's excellent. I want to make sure, though, that the economic development that we're doing in and around the Fifth Ward, that we are setting up protections that are not going to price out our residents through rent hikes or higher property taxes. I also want to make sure that we're fostering assets for our residents. So we need to set up more, not only the rental protections, but also more paths to home ownership, so we can work with sustainable lenders who can give down payment assistance programs and work with people when they get in trouble on their homes so that we can have home retention as well. Building assets means intergenerational wealth. That's the wealth you can pass on, and home ownership is the best way you can do that.
You said something in the beginning. Would you say protections? Can you say a little, explain what you mean by protections?
Sure. So when I'm talking about tenant protections, it's if your landlord goes through a foreclosure, I've looked through the ordinances, I don't see what protections we have set up to make sure that that family gets to stay in their home. It seems that they're limited, and that's one of the more important issues.
Thank you. Got it. Ms. Murray?
Well, one of the programs I would like to see come back, I purchased my home approximately 15 years ago on a first-time buyer program. That program does not exist anymore. So that is one of the needed initiatives that I can see that we can work on to get back for young families who have the income with assistance for the down payment and a portion of the loan be at 0%. Also, I think it's very important that we consider looking at programs that will help seniors remain in their homes. So with those same first-time buyer program funding, we will look at some initiatives to take on that, as well as rehabilitation for existing homes homeowners who live there who are not able to afford financing or to be able to do rehabbing and construction on their homes. So those loans that used to exist, they no longer exist, and I want to help the city bring those initiatives back.
Thank you very much. I'm going to just give an editorial comment. When you said those home funds that provided the first loan, I think both of the last speakers just referenced that. Those home dollars are just Evanston dollars. They're dollars that are matched with the feds, and as the feds dry up, just saying. Mr. Featherston.
Well, working as a realtor, and I've sold about a half dozen houses in the Fifth Ward. There are affordable housing in the Fifth Ward and in Evanston. I think what we have to do is make sure that people know about some of the programs that the city offers. The city does offer a lot of programs where seniors can refinance and keep their homes, and they do provide quite a few dollars. So I think getting the word out to people and hitting the ground running and making sure people know about some of the programs And also working with the mayor and the city government to keep taxes under control would be a big beneficial help. But I think we do have affordable housing in Evanston, and I think we do have a lot of things set up. I just think that we have to get the word out to a lot of people in the community so they'll know exactly what these programs are that can help them stay in their homes.
Thank you, Mr. Featherston. Mrs. Root.
Thank you. As Mr. Sutton said, livable wage jobs is where this discussion needs to start. We need opportunity so that we can afford to stay in Evanston. We do need to expand the affordable housing programs, and on average, we have every year $1.6 million in CDBG funds and a combined few $100,000 more in home and emergency funds. Those funds should be used for an improved first-time home buyers program, including down payment assistance and other programming, as the other candidates mentioned, that will help seniors and other families stay in their home longer. We have a tax burden here in Evanston, and if our seniors have that opportunity to stay in their homes and live independently, then we can maintain and retain our affordable housing here. In addition to that, we need to work on, although we celebrated pass of the inclusionary housing, we need to expand that. We need more opportunity for affordable rentals. The housing stock here, based on the medium cost of homes, makes it a barrier even for first-time home buyer opportunities. So an opportunity for affordable rentals is definitely urgent, and that's something that I would work on with city staff to make sure that we have. Now, I have been able to create near 24 homes in the 5th and the 8th Ward through NSP2 and other funding. So I'll work to find grants and subsidies outside of the city so that we can bring funds in, also creating jobs in the development of those properties.
Thank you very much, candidate. I'm sorry, what was the comment? Did somebody need something, need a card, or, any comments? Can everybody hear? We doing okay on sound? Good. On housing, we heard candidates respond that everybody needed to be a home buyer. Some candidates talked about expanding rental housing, so there were a lot of options out there. Taxes were mentioned. When taxes were mentioned, folks in the audience made a lot of noise. There is a question here that property taxes are chasing many of our Black older residents out of Evanston. What relief would you provide, Ms. Murray?
Well, I work with council to see the most viable tax increments that we can look into for homeowners. Obviously, we don't want to continue to increase the taxpayers and the property tax, but we have a budget with outstanding obligations that we haven't been able to facilitate without the tax increase. So we have to look at an equitable amount that will not tax on homeowners, especially seniors, and those who cannot afford it.
Thank you very much. Ms. Wittenberg, property taxes.
So I want to look at all of our municipal taxes and see what we can do to reform them. Right now, property taxes are disproportionately affecting low and mid-income households because those people are the ones who all of their wealth is tied up into their home. Also, the people who are renting, about 75% of the increases in taxes are passed on to the renters. So that when you're adding in sales taxes and the city's fines and fees, the lowest earners are actually paying about twice the tax rate as the highest earners. So those are things that we need to look at in general. There are a lot of things we can look to do and work with the state to do so that we can make those taxes more even across the board and across the socioeconomic divide.
Thank you, Ms. Wittenberg. Mr. Sutton.
Well, the elephant in the room was that huge university that's tax-free. All right. So what do we do to survive? We have survived in Evanston all these years. We need support for our schools. We need support for our streets. We need support for the things. So basically, the two things we can do. One, and the first thing, is to solidify those homeowners who are under stress right now and provide them with the kinds of relief that they can to stay in their homes. And second, more important to me, I'm very much concerned about the turnover of homes. Granny dies, the children move to Gurnee. We need to have an education about stay and pray and relocate and improve here. The taxes are always going to go up because we have no businesses here left anymore, and we have to solidify what resources we have to make sure that we're able to stay in our homes here in Evanston.
Thank you very much. Mr. Second, Mr. Ferguson.
There are a lot of tax breaks for seniors. I would just like to get all the information out to people. Sometimes people don't know, and if we work to spread the word out to people and let people know that there are tax breaks out there for them, and especially for seniors, I think that would go a long way starting out. Like I said, working with the city government for tax freezes, and there's money put away to help people in the community. So we need somebody who's going to fight to make sure that the people know about these things and that the people are getting the help that they need.
Thank you, Mr. Featherston. There was a gentleman on this side of the room that had a long question. If you would make your way down, and if anybody else has questions that need to be picked up, are you still on this side of the room? Here? That question is still here. Okay, I will not find it. No? I can only ask one more. So can somebody help me if that question is still here? Come on down, sir. This is going to be our last question, and then we're going to switch from this side to that side. We're going to do a little movement up here, so bear with us. Come on, all the way, right here in the middle. Come on down, because the mic only goes as far. Okay? I want you to come up by me. Thank you. You're very good.
We haven't, the question. We had a candidate here who spoke on development in the neighborhood. And the question is to Ms. Robin, you've done some projects here through the city of Evanston. How many have you done?
Through the city?
Through the city.
I had a direct contract with 21 properties, and I had more that were subcontracts.
Okay.
The city of Evanston through NSP2. I had additional properties that I did in programs outside of NSP2 as well.
I don't think we can all hear you. So can you just rephrase your question for me? I'm sorry, I was getting some pointers.
Well, the question is, we have candidates that are running and they're talking about the assistance that they contribute or what they've contributed to the community. And in the housing development, where I was one of those houses, and we got shafted. Actually, there are 3 different people in the audience, or maybe 4, that were left with anywhere between $60,000 to $100,000 in.
Your question is specifically to Ms. Rose.
It is.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. I'm going to ask you to keep your seat down, and we'll let her answer, okay? And would you start over again to bring this back? I'm sorry, you're another homeowner? You're another homeowner. I got you, but I can't take personal stories. I'm sorry. I think she's, no. Just bear with me. You might like to respond. But I'm sorry. Yeah, I want to let her answer. Just be patient, people. Come on, let's go through. We're all better. Go down the same step. And we're going to see each other. I'm sorry, what did you say?
I just think it's really funny that.
Mr. Would you like to answer the original question?
Thank you for the question, Tommy. I completed through a direct contract with the city of Evanston and Brimshore, 21 homes under NSP2 in the 5th and the 8th ward. They were all successfully completed, and families that needed affordable housing are living in them right now. They're beautiful. They're all along Simpson, Foster, Dodge. You know them. You've seen them. In addition to that, I've had multiple other projects that were outside of NSP2, and I've also had other projects that I did under the city of Evanston that were not NSP2. In response to your property, Mr. Jenkins, that was 4 years ago, and it was a business deal that it just didn't go well. Pardon?
To the tune of.
So it didn't go, I want to respond to this, it didn't go well. I can say that I learned a lot from your project. I learned a lot about what I should not do and what I should do. And I've grown from that experience. And there is some accountability on the client's part as well. And I don't know how far we want to get into that. But I can say that I did the work that you paid for, and I'm proud of the work that I did.
It's to the tune of $180,000 that a project was done.
Sir, when you ask your question, solve every problem. Okay? You didn't get your card.
There are other people. There are 4 people here that sit here.
No, you may not. I'm sorry. I have questions for 2 other candidates. It's a forum. It's not a debate. Bear with me. Please, we have mayoral candidates and clerk candidates still waiting. We can't answer each individual question. I'm sorry. In addition to the cards I have here, I have 6 cards that say Karen.
Well, she wants our vote.
This is for Misty.
And when she wants our vote,
It sounds as
she
if you
can't
believe
have
the
it.
fifth ward
She
is
didn't complete a
comprised of
project that was
low-income
$180,000. She walked away with 40% of it done.
families.
And I'm not on there. 4 other people in this audience that would love to tell their story. So when you're on the platform and you're talking about running as a candidate in the ward, how can you sit there when you have 4 people here that have paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to get their home redone, and you walk away with 40% done? I was forced to complete my house on my own funds, and it took over 5 years to do that. I'm still working on it right now. This person who wouldn't come to the table, who wouldn't come to mediation, who wouldn't answer a registered letter, is running for alderman. So if she can't come to the table and mediate, or for mediation, how can she run our ward? That's my question.
Can't answer your individual questions. I'm terribly sorry. I'm sorry very much. Ms. Murray, this is for you. What are you going to do about the crime situation in the 5th ward? Gun violence, trafficking, drug trafficking, and other types of crime? Please, please, please. Okay, we're gonna wait till we can speak in one voice. Is that okay?
Could you repeat what you said?
I'm trying now. Ms. Murray, this question is for you. What are you going to do about the crime situation in the 5th ward? Gun violence, drug trafficking, and other types of crime, if elected?
As many of you know, I was affected personally by gun violence. It has plagued my family, the pain that we've had to succumb just to get basic correspondence and communication from the police department. I hosted a Crime Stoppers interaction with those residents who have lost loved ones to gun violence. So the beginning of reviewing police accountability and transparency, I'm in favor of the independent review board as it is evolving. I think that we should collectively look at how we can revamp community policing. We have a PSC, we have more PSC officers in this ward. However, we need to review and take some very serious looks on how we police our community. This is not the same community that it was 20 years ago. Therefore, the training and the perspective on how we police the Fifth Ward is going to be diverse as we look overall in the city. Sorry, we're out of time.
Thank you for your patience. We're going to switch now. Thank you. Please give each of these candidates for Fifth Ward Alderman a round of applause. Robin Yu, James Evanston, Carolyn Murray, Mr. Wittenberg, and Carla Sutton. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you as we switch rooms, sides of the room, gentlemen. And after this, of course, we're going to have the clerks speak as well. Just to reiterate again, a few housekeeping rules. If you have questions, there are two ladies roaming the room to take your questions. We'll try and take as many as we can. It is 8 o'clock now, approaching 8 o'clock. So we're going to have about a 2-minute introduction from each of the candidates. For mayor, we have Alderman Miller. We have Jeff Smith. We have Mr. Gaspar, Alderman Tendon, and we have Mr. Haggerty. We'll start with Mr. Miller.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out. My name is Brian Miller. I'm the current 9th Ward Alderman in Evanston. I've been the Alderman for the past 2 years. I actually grew up in Evanston, been here for 30 years. Lived in 2nd, 6th, which is now the 9th Ward. And I think the most important thing we can have in a mayor is someone that has an independent voice. In my 2 years as Alderman, I've been standing up for what I see wrong in the city of Evanston. I think a lot of people in the room, we were talking about police accountability for the last 2 weeks. For the last 2 years, what I've seen in our community are multiple incidents where our officers are escalating routine situations. For example, I've been working with Alderman Braithwaite on the Human Services Committee. We've had 2 incidents in the past 2 years where our youth were stopped for riding without a bike lane. Those incidents led those youth being charged with resisting arrest in one, and the other one, so they were searched, they were cuffed, and they were thrown in the back of the car under suspicion of doing other things for merely riding without a bike lane. Another incident we had was on Central Street where we had a mother with her kids in the car. She ran into Starbucks to grab a cup of coffee. The officer came up, thought she'd abandoned her children, and started pursuing that action. This woman actually happened to be a public defender, stood up for herself. The officers in those situations still called DCFS and pursued charges against this woman. So these are 3 incidents we see in the past, that I've seen in the past 2 years, that we've seen on the Human Services Committee, that I brought to light as an independent on the board. Then we had Mr. Reed arrested for collecting signatures to get on the ballot. He was exercising his First Amendment right. He told the officer this, and he didn't have to identify himself. And he was arrested for disobeying the order of an officer. For 2 years, I've been fighting this issue as an independent, standing up and actually being crucified in the media in a lot of ways for standing up. 2 weeks ago, I called for the release of the video of Lawrence Crosby, the Northwestern student who was arrested for stealing his own car. I will continue to be the independent voice that our city needs to change and reform what we need in all these problems. That's one example. We'll talk about more. Thank you.
You know, a moderator is not always a welcome job. I don't know how many people have ever seen over the years, I'm old school, Apollo and Sandman used to come out together. That's kind of what the dark flag is. So don't make me run across stage. Thank you, Alderman Miller. Mr. Jeff Smith. What'd you say? Did you want to write it down? Anybody have any more cards while we're there? Mr. Miller. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Karen. I'm Jeff Smith, and I'm running for mayor because this is a great town, but I want to make it an amazing town. I went up to people for about a month saying, with your help and my wife's permission, I'll be the next mayor of Evanston. My wife eventually gave me her permission. She went out and got 3 sheets of signatures for me, so I guess I'm going for it. Many of you in this room have already voted for me. This is not my first time here. It's not my first rodeo in Evanston. But it's been a few years and I was seated as a candidate. So to reintroduce myself, I was born in Chicago. I moved to the suburbs when my folks were able to afford it. Went to the same schools as my homie Hillary Clinton. Came out to Evanston as a teenager, started knocking on my first doors for progressive candidates 40 years ago, this fall that we just finished. Went out to law school after a little time of driving a forklift, working as a janitor, driving a bus in Evanston, and well, the band broke up. So I went out to law school, same law school as Barack Obama, and came back here, couldn't afford Evanston, lived in Rogers Park, and had a variety of jobs, including the good fortune to work for Harold Washington with the City of Chicago's Corporation Council. Thank you, thank you. Knocked on doors for Harold Washington, got myself branded as an enemy of machine politics, worked for every progressive I could in the city, came up to Evanston where they put me to work knocking on doors for Carol Mosley Braun, and we turned the 6th Ward into a Democratic ward for the first time in 1992 with that election. I worked for tenants as an attorney. I've worked for unemployed people. I think I'm the only person on the stage who's brought a civil rights case against government agencies. I've represented a man who was shackled to the wall of a cell by a high-ranking government person, and we were able to win that case. I've represented people in foreclosure, worked against predatory loans. You might get the sense that I kind of have a soft spot for the underdog, and that sense would be right. I got into this campaign partially because I was concerned for many years about gentrification in Evanston. I've heard the phrase drive-by diversity, and my concern was that it might become buy-by diversity because the taxes are pushing people out. And it's not uniform, it's not across the board, but some folks just can't afford to live here anymore, and I made my decision to run partially because during the petitioning process, talking to people not so far from here, who, not so far from this room, who were considering having to move to Skokie, single mothers doing everything they could do right, but could not afford to pay the taxes anymore. My first apartment after college was on Foster Street in what's now 5th Ward. I lived on Dewey, just north of Dempster Street. I lived just south of Howard Street for 8 years. So though I'm in the 6th Ward in the same house for 26 years, and I've put 2 kids with my wife through the District 65 and 202 schools, I know Evanston well. We're entering a time of madness nationally, and I ask for your vote as a voice of reason. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Jeff Smith. We'll now hear from Gary Gaspar.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Gary Gaspar. I'm running for Mayor of Evanston, and I want your support. To start off, many questions that some of you had for the Alderman, and I think I'm already have them before speaking of myself, because I said the time is short, but I'm a candidate who is committed to changing lives. I'm committed to ensuring diversity and inclusion, equal rights for all, putting a stop to discrimination against minorities, especially against African Americans, Latino residents, and others, making Evanston a safe place for LGBTQ community. Protect seniors, fighting the physical and financial abuse of seniors by encouraging local law enforcement to consistently take advanced training to recognize and investigate abuse as part of the elderly. Well, I'm committed to protecting people with disabilities. I'm committed to uploading Evanston sanctuary city status. I'm committed to improving police relations, and I'm committed to committed to economic development. It's one thing I know about economic development. If you have economic development, you do not minus economic deprivation, you do not have economic development. With gentrification and a community where you have people moving out and you have new people coming in, this is not economic development. I'm committed to youth balance, and I'm committed to no privatizing to public safety, and also, I think I did one more. And also, I'm committed to property tax. What I want about property tax, I know, like I said in the question directed to Alderman, the property tax have been the driving source that drives the lifelong Evanston away. This is what I want to do. I want to stop the property tax for 2 years, and then please see me, Gary Gaspar, that is it.
I'm too old to run across the stage. I'll take the mic. I've gotten like 6 cards up here, seriously, folks, that are asking in the audience if you could keep your comments down so that they can hear the candidates. The acoustics are not what they should be, but let's let everybody try it here. Are we okay up top? Are you guys okay with that? Okay, so just wanted to make sure before we introduce Alderman Mark.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you all for being here. This is not unusual for Ms. Holmes to bring a good group together for most any occasion, whether it's an ice cream social or a political conversation as we are having this time. Thank you, Ms. Holmes. I came to Evanston about 20 years ago. I had no idea what I would be doing in Evanston. I was starting a business maybe 5 years into it as a graphic designer. I considered the resources and talent I would have in this community in terms of running my business, but never dreamed I could make it grow as I did. This was a perfect environment for the kind of business I wanted to be in. And that said, I also took on the responsibility when I joined up with an organization called Beehive, Better Existence with HIV. Beehive was a pioneer in a lot of ways, as you would expect from an HIV/AIDS service organization started by Evanstonians. We crossed the line and went where many people never followed in terms of housing and health care with people with HIV and AIDS. As a result of being on that, part of that organization as the board president, I got involved with all the communities. I also had my first appearance in front of the city council, and it did not go well. It was at that time I decided I would, in fact, challenge that. If you can't beat them, join them, right? So I did. And for the last 8 years, almost, I have served as 6th Ward Alderman, but I've also had the privilege of sitting next to Dolores Holmes, your Alderman of the 5th Ward. And I think the one lesson she has taught me is to be honest, open, and have a dialogue. So often we're afraid to talk about the toughest issues, but we must. If you treat it with respect and caring and understanding, if it comes from your heart, even if you say the stupidest thing or the most inappropriate thing, you can start a dialogue. It's not coming from a place of meanness, it's probably coming from a place of ignorance or just plain lack of experience. But it's so important that we had that dialogue. And I enjoyed my 7.5 years with you, Ms. Holmes, and enjoyed the interaction with this community as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Kendrick. Please join me in welcoming Steve.
Thank you. It is truly an honor to be on the stage with all of you guys who are interested in taking a career in public service, and with all of you and everything that you have done here in Evanston. My name is Steve Haggerty. To help you remember my name, quick little story. Many years ago, I was out in the backyard and I was playing catch with a neighborhood kid, and about 15 minutes into it, the kid said to me, "Hey, your name's Steven and my name's Steven." I said, "Hey, how about that? Is yours spelled with a V or a PH?" And the kid looked at me kind of funny and said, "Mine's spelled with an S." So my name is Stephen Haggerty. It is spelled with a PH and an S. Okay, so when you're there on February 28th and you're looking at that ballot and you're trying to figure out, okay, who am I voting for? You remember Steve Haggerty. All right. I feel truly blessed to live in Evanston with my family. We moved here 17 years ago. I have traveled all over the United States over the last 24 years, helping communities prepare for and recover from disasters, bad disasters, 9/11, Katrina, Superstorm Sandy. I have seen people sort of at their worst. And I have learned over the years that those communities that recover better and respond better after a disaster are those communities that have a strong social fabric. Okay, so if you think of Evanston in terms of a fabric, it can't be a fabric that there's just a white part of that fabric and a black part and a brown part and so forth. It has to be a tapestry. And my interest in running for mayor is to do what I have done with this community, with many organizations throughout the last 10 years, has helped us build a tapestry. What I have learned from disaster recovery and what I have learned from all my civic engagement is that no leader on this stage is going to get the job done. It's about leadership. It's about bringing all of us together, focusing on what the problems are, and then focusing on developing solutions and getting us there. I have done that in this community, and I'd like to help lead this community as your next mayor. Thank you.
Thank you to each and every one of our candidates for mayor, and how lucky we are in this community to have Alderman Brian Miller, Mr. Jeff Smith, Mr. Gary Gaspar, Alderman Mark Tenden, and Steve Haggerty running for mayor, willing to serve us in our community. Thank you very, very much, and thank you for your attention. So I have a couple of questions for you guys. My question, it says, is to have any of the candidates talk, that's an aldermanic question, sorry about that, but think about this, Alderman. Aldermanic candidates, I got this with the narrow questions. It says, have any of you spoken with Alderman Holmes on ongoing issues that are being faced now, and how you make that transition if elected? And at the end, if we have a chance to answer that, we will. Sorry about that. What specifically, this one says, Mayor, what specifically do you plan to do to address the need for affordable housing? We talked about a little bit with the aldermanic candidates. Mr. Jasper, would you like to answer that one first?
Thank you so much. Good question.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Whoa. You know, 2 minutes. Well, one, affordable housing. The other day I had a meeting with a group of prominent citizens. One of them, they asked me, oh, why you talk so much about the fifth ward? No, I'm not running for the fifth ward, but the mayor is supposed to be fair and equitable. One thing I want to do, I find that the fifth ward doesn't have a TIF program. So I would like to have a TIF program for affordable housing for low-income families and seniors. We got to keep them. And what I want to do also in Evanston, I want to stop the property tax for 2 years, and I want to initiate a local slash city income tax for high-level citizens. And I want to, the employers, you want to do business with us, you spend money in town. So it's a percentage of your employer, of your employment, supposed to come from Evanston workers. So we can move on with the property tax, we can move on with our low-income families. Thank you.
Mr. Haggerty, would you like to respond to that, please?
I think affordable housing is a really big issue. You go around the city and you talk to people, and you find these people who love Evanston, and you'll say, oh my gosh, what part of Evanston do you live in? And they'll say, oh, I actually live in Rogers Park, I live in Skokie. And I think we have to approach this problem. One, what can we control? We can control property taxes in this city, okay? That is something that affects young families, it affects all families, okay? But it affects people on a fixed income, it affects young families. So I think we have to have a focus on smart and sensible economic development throughout this entire city, okay? And that includes all neighborhoods of this city, all right? I think we need to look at the fact that Illinois has the highest rate among any state of blacks that are unemployed. Think about that for a second, okay? We need to work hard to make sure that employers know about people that we have in this community. We need to work with Northwestern University, with the hospitals, okay, to get things like the skilled trades program and others. We need to work with our youth and continue the excellent program that Mayor Tinsdale has started with the Youth Jobs Program. Okay, I also think we need to take a look at the affordable housing fund of this city and how are we actually using that. We need to have a community conversation. I think we also need to make sure that we get our fair share of federal grants. Now, things are a little up in the air. 16 hours from now, there will be a new president of the United States. We're not sure where that's going to go, but I have spent 24 years fighting for communities around this country to get the federal aid that they're entitled to, and we need to make sure we get it here. All of those things, I think, together can help us with affordable housing, but it has to be a topic that we discuss in City Council, and I will work with the Alderman, and I'll work with others on the City Council to help address this. Thank you.
Thank you. For the last 4 years, I have been the aldermanic representative on the Affordable Housing and Homelessness Commission, which has expanded its powers through the direction of Mayor Tisdall. And with our amendments to the housing, or inclusionary housing ordinance in the last year, we have started to build a fund that we can finally do something with. We have, as one of the aldermanic candidates said, we have a certain amount of home and other funds that come from the federal government, but we can't count on that. We may be on our own. We don't know. If there are federal and other funds to be had, by all means, go and get them. But we really need to take care of Evanston first with our own resources. This affordable housing fund could be as much as $3 to $4 million by the end of this year, given the amount of progress and development we're having. So with that kind of money, we can talk. We can talk to the people that we want to be developing housing in this community. We can talk to people like the man who's building the 44-unit apartment at Noise and the L-Tracks. He's including housing on site. That's transportation appropriate or inclusive housing, and that's a big step in terms of getting the housing that we want where we want it. And with that kind of money, we can extend invitations to our CHODOs. CIFA, Community Partners for Affordable Housing, has done great work in this community, and it's time that we let them get the ball and run with it, because they are a proven entity that works really well with our council, with our city, and they have a great track record. So there are lots of things we can do now that we have a fund with some teeth in it. We need to expand that fund in ways that doesn't place the burden on all the bigger apartment building builders, but we can also look at ways to maybe tax through tear down or demolition taxes and other sources like that. So it's very promising. I think we finally have something going as far as affordable housing, but quite honestly, in the end, it comes down to what Mr. Sutton said, that the key to affordable housing is jobs that give you the ability to afford those homes, and that's what we need most.
Thank you, Alderman Miller.
Thank you. You remember when I said I'd be independent? Let me say this. There's not much the city can do about property taxes. 2/3 of your property tax bill comes from the school. When you receive your tax bill, your assessment comes from the county assessor. And the average assessment in Evanston went up 25%. There's not much the city can do about your property taxes. But what we can do to actually make your house and how to live in Evanston more affordable is we have fees and services that we charge a lot for. Water, sewer, electricity. We can get an electricity business. We can make it more affordable to live here by giving you rebates that offset your property tax bill. That's one way. There's, we can talk about CDBG, the Community Development Block Grants, about building affordable housing trust fund. We can throw out a variety of programs. But the day-to-day expenses that you're facing as a resident of Evanston, the city can help you with rebates in that sense. That's one. Let's also talk about this, our budget. The city of Evanston spends a lot of money on things that look good. We have bike lanes. We have divvy bikes. We have a variety of things that day-to-day don't really improve the lives of most of our residents. So how about we examine our spending so we don't have to keep raising property taxes? How about tax increment financing? What we did in Evanston was we mortgaged our most productive economic areas. We have a TIF in downtown Evanston. We have a TIF on we have 2 on Howard Street. We have 1 on Main Street. We have 7 TIFs throughout the entire city. How about we stop taking that money and let's put it back into the city of Evanston? We don't have to raise it every single year. We could do affordable housing trust funds, we could do everything of the sort. The best thing we could do is put money back in your pocket so you can stay in your house longer.
Can't reach it to him that way, he's gotta go around. Thank you, Alderman Miller. Jeff Smith.
Well, the problem with talking about affordable housing and the way the city looks at programs is that it ends up with people fighting or talking about crumbs when we don't discuss how the cake got taken off the table to begin with. We've heard 4 candidates talk. Have you heard the G word? 20 years I've been saying if we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to be gentrifying people out of Evanston. You start to say, Jeff, oh, don't say that, Jeff. Don't. You don't want to talk about gentrification. The city throws money at developers in the forms of subsidies, in the forms of zoning breaks, in the forms of all sorts of enticements and incentives. And all sorts of buildings are put up, and folks make lots of money, and land values go up, and there's a ripple across it, and Evanston acts as if the rules of economics don't apply somehow here in Evanston, that we don't, that we're not subject to the law of gravity or the laws of supply and demand. And it's just not so. So the main thing, I would disagree with Mr. Miller. We can do something. The main thing is to get a hold on policies that are skewing land values. We do need to get a hold of our spending, but the city has to own its role in what it's done to distort the housing market in Evanston. And you don't save money just by adding folks. I love folks as much as anybody. I love new neighbors. A couple of us stood up 8 years ago, city council said, if you keep on adding buildings and buildings and buildings, the city would say, oh, these are these mythical people, I would call them, who are going to come up here and they don't have kids and they don't have cars, right? I said, if you add 1,000 folks coming up from Lincoln Park, some of them are going to have babies. Because Evanston's a romantic place. And so now we're facing a $13.5 million a year referendum from District 65 because, oh my gosh, there's 1,400 kids in the schools that there weren't years ago. So I was the only candidate up here, I think, who actually worked on an affordable housing group. We've lost 3,000 units of affordable housing in the last 8 years. I'm not going to lay it on any one individual alderman because these are all friends of mine, but we have to take charge and own up to our own responsibilities. Thank you.
Sorry about that. You know, there are a couple of housing questions here, and I'm just going to ask for a show of hands, actually. And I'm going to ask the aldermanic as well as the mayor oral candidates to show hands after the questions. So, if elected, will you push for affordable housing in the 6th and 7th wards? For all people, including professionals, who don't make, whose incomes exceed current program constraints, like teachers and policemen, you know, that kind of thing. Will you push for those programs outside of the current perimeters? And I'm kind of expounding here, if it's your question, in the 6th, 7th wards throughout the city? So I see a yes, yes, yes. Anybody a no? Misty, you look perplexed. What's the question?
You were saying for people who earn more than the threshold?
Yeah, people over the low income threshold. So we have programs, and I'm reading a lot into this question. We currently have programs, is what this implies, for people that are low income. And I think you talked about that, and I think we've heard something about that from the mayoral candidates as well as the aldermanic. This particular neighbor is asking, will you include programs in other wards, like 6 and 7, for folks whose incomes exceed but still find it difficult, exceed low-income guidelines but still find it difficult? We don't have those. The implication is we don't have programs for them. Teachers, police, folks who are at the middle and below, but not low income. Would that be, is that clear? Yes or no? Yes? Raise a hand. Let's say saying, okay. No, you wouldn't? No, yes or no? No, it is, yeah, affordable for them, affordable for this target. Middle income, that's, we're not debating it, yes or no? Yes. Is your question? Is it your question?
No, but I can give you the answer.
No, nope. If it's not your question, I can't expound on it, I'm sorry. That was one. The next one is, also a housing question. Do you, that's not it, where'd it go? Oh, are there any programs in Evanston, for housing refugee families? I don't know the answer to that. Are there any programs in Evanston specifically targeted to refugee families? It could be, I feel that way too sometimes. Yes.
Yeah, we have Syrian families. One thing I can say about the fifth work, we welcome everybody. And we've done, I think, our fair share of giving homes and available to everyone else, and now it's time to spread it out.
Okay, all right. And there was something on this side of the room. Yes, sir.
The initiatives I know are mostly faith-based initiatives, but not to necessarily involve the city, but we do try to help.
And I saw you shaking your head, Alderman Miller.
I agree.
And Jeff Smith, you were also nominated.
I'm just adding.
Anybody else? Did I miss anybody? Mr. Haggerty, I didn't see you. Okay, there you go. All right. And did I answer your, did you finish to the best of my ability?
Connections versus
Okay, alrighty. Thank you. Do you believe we need an independent police oversight board in Evanston? I'm going to go down the road.
Definitely. I drafted some language for a petition for that, and Betty and I had some differences, but I favor the concept.
Thank you. Mr. Gaspar.
I have to be more receptive to that. If you say police oversight board, would it be elected official or will it be still be appointed by the mayor?
That's all the question said.
Well, no.
Okay.
We do have two committees. If they're not working correctly, we need to fix that.
Thank you. Mr. Hager?
I think people need to understand what our complaint process is right now, and it absolutely should be reviewed and understood by all of us, and we should look to make any modifications to it that address concerns that many of us have.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, you what? No, you didn't. Oh, that's okay. I think we're going to have to clean this out. I'm sorry.
But yes, an oversight board we can transition it from the advisory board who issues independent regular reports and has.
Any other Alderman candidates want to weigh in on that? Yes?
Right.
You're good. Go ahead.
As long as the civilian board is independent, I advocate an election for members of the civilian review board, powers of being able to discipline officers, investigation powers, and also, if you don't live in Evanston, don't wear the badge in Evanston.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton. The clerks would like to weigh in on that too, the clerk candidates.
I do agree that we should have an independent, other than anyone else, shouldn't have any officials, shouldn't have the police department, but independent people who are chosen from the community to be on that investigation board so that they can give an accurate report, what's going on with the police department, what's going on with anybody's been disciplined, or being suspended, or receiving any kind of action that will prevent them from doing what they've been doing in the past, and they have to have more training.
Thank you, Clerk Green. Carolyn Murray wanted to weigh in?
So I believe that we should take initiatives to consider a board that would have power to make strong recommendations to encourage transparency and accountability for the police department. Yes, I believe it's time.
I definitely think that we need an independent police civilian board. As city clerk, the clerk's office can do a lot to create that, to help facilitate that. We know that Betty Esther and Jeff Smith here helped try to get a referendum on the ballot. The clerk's office can take leadership to make sure folks know how to use their government to create boards like this. Right now, I think Brian was going to mention the complaint process is done internally by 2 officers who have offices inside of the police station and it's reported directly up the ranks. We need, and the oversight boards that exist currently don't receive any evidence as to the officer's potential misconduct. And we really need to change that and create an independent citizens police review board.
Thank you, Mr. Reed, and all the other candidates that weighed in on that question. Now, should we switch?
Good. Actually, I just changed the levels on that.
So we're okay?
Yeah, how's it sounding outside?
How's it? How are we doing, folks? Thank you for bearing with us. Thank you, Mr. Beatty. Appreciate it. What is your position on the upcoming District 65 operating referendum? What can be done from a city perspective if the referendum is not passed? I'm going to go down the line, Mr. Miller.
I'm in favor of the referendum. It's our schools, these are our kids, my kids who go to schools, I went to the Evanston schools. I think this is probably the best thing we have in this community. And if you look at it, it's unfortunate that, revenues are not in line with the expenditures. Now what we can do, there's not much, we don't have a direct, as a city, we don't have a direct role in, the oversight of the schools, but we can work together to try to combine, resources in a sense. Let's actually be more efficient so we can not have to spend as much as we do in the schools. But I'm in favor of the referendum.
Because I've been looking more at municipal issues lately, I haven't made a final decision on the referendum. The case for having to fund the impact of 1,400 additional children when there's a cap on the property tax levy is a pretty compelling case. And as I think the only one up here who actually had 2 kids go through District 65, I know what a blessing it is to have great teachers and to have a great system that can help kids succeed. At the same time, District 65 spends an awful lot of money. There's a lot of money that's been spent on capital expenditures. I don't know that the city has really worked hard enough with District 65 and with District 202 to help keep their costs in line. District 202 may have done a better job with planning for the future when they saw the demographic changes coming. And if they haven't, then you're going to see the same 1,400 kid funnel coming into the high schools. And we've already seen just this week a request for more money from I think your boss, Larry Sufferton, said that we could look for a request for a tax hike from the Forest Preserve. The county's going to want more money. Everybody's going to complain that the feds and Springfield aren't sending us enough. And there comes a point, we can't keep saying more taxes, more taxes, more taxes, and then say, scratch your head and say, how are people taxed out of town? So everybody loves kids, everybody loves the schools, but I want to take a real good look at it and know that the money is going to be spent wisely.
Thank you, Jeff Smith. Mr. Gaston.
I too am in favor of the referendum. Why? Because we have to invest in our kids. That's one. And second, give the power back to the people. If the residents of the voters in Evanston are the ones that are going to decide whether we need to invest $40 million on the 265. And we have to do no matter what we can do to keep the kids in school. We have to invest in our school. I too am in favor of the referendum.
Thank you. I support the district's referendum. The city schools are one of the top one of the top measurements of just how good a community is. And we know that the elementary schools, the ages from preschool through third grade, are imperative in terms of getting every child at the same level and will stay at the same level for the rest of their school life. So I do support this. I've not met with Dr. Gorn, but I do have a lot of faith in him and his new administration that this is a money that will be very well spent and will certainly need to work more hand in hand together with District 65, District 202. More intergovernmental cooperation would certainly help in the future to prevent huge increases like this, but I do think it's necessary at this time.
Thank you, Alderman Tender. Steve Hackney.
All right, thank you. I think this is an incredibly difficult issue, like a lot of issues that come before the City Council and the Mayor. We've talked here tonight about affordability. We've talked here tonight about the number of residents and the decline in black families that live in Evanston. We've seen that drop from the high 20s as a percentage of our population to the high teens. And so when we talk about a referendum here, we're talking about an increase in property taxes. I actually disagree with a comment that was made earlier that, hey, only 1/3 of those property taxes that we pay are city and county. That is indeed true, but most people look at their property tax bill and look at the entire bill. And so 2/3 of that is going into the schools. I feel very strongly that we need to make sure that we have smart and sensible economic development in this community so that we continue to increase our tax base. Increasing that tax base supports our schools. Doesn't do it right now, though. We've got this referendum on the ballot right now. After weighing sort of both of these sides, have come to the conclusion that I'm going to support the referendum. I think the livability of this city is critical for all children and all families, and it's essential that we make sure that we continue to have incredibly high-quality schools and some of the best schools in the state here. What I will say is that if we find ourselves in a position we have to sell city assets, okay, like the library parking lot, for instance, we ought to take a look at that, and when we sell that parking lot for $5 million or whatever that amount may be, we ought to take some of that money and we earmark it towards affordable housing and put it into our affordable housing fund to help some of these families that are going to be truly impacted by such an increase if this referendum passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hackney. The next question is, what do you feel about changing the local employment hiring ordinance? Alderman Tender? I'm sorry, the question is, what are your feelings about changing the local employment hiring ordinance?
Is that a reference to the MWEBE?
Expound on that. I have another one that says $15 minimum wage. Oh, wait, he's got the mic. You can speak to him.
I'm assuming this has a lot to do with the city's priority given to Evanston-based and minority-based and women-based businesses. I was part of that committee for several years, and I think the key piece that was missing until recently was compliance. It's great to have these ordinances on the book, but if you do not follow up and make sure that employers are following through with these requirements, it's useless. Employers at that time, even prior to we making amendments to this provision, were paying very, very small fines. It was almost easier to pay the fine on a daily basis than it was to include Evanston-based businesses. So that said, I think we are in a much better position, and I do support expanding and maintaining that program to employ as many Evanston people as possible for city contracts.
Did you want to clarify that, Ms. Esther? No, thank you, Alderman Tender.
That is the local hiring. We are talking about citizens. Right now, the companies we require them to hire 4 people, and that's it. They have met that. That need to be raised. And we have been asking for that percentage to be raised, and it has not been raised yet.
So for contracts to hire local, contracts that are let by the city to hire locally?
And they just pay the fine, they don't hire the people.
They don't hire the people. The people.
It's okay, Lonnie. I'm just trying to clarify. So
They don't hire, we are not talking about contractors, we are talking about citizens that live here, that do not get hired. When a company comes in and they are using either city funds to do a project or road funds, our city ordinance says it's okay for them to hire 4 people or pay for, excuse me.
And the question was, will we increase that? Are you in favor of increasing that 4?
Yes, it needs to
Yes,
be.
I just want to clarify, I don't want to assume. So are you, did you want to speak to that, because I think we run a different way.
It is the same program I'm speaking to, but it has to do with the fact that it's proportional to the amount of the contract. It's not necessarily for people. It could be smaller or much larger. I think the flaw in the system, aside from the compliance, is giving people the opportunity to work as something other than flagman. Menial jobs like that aren't going to train our workforce. We need these companies to invest and make sure the jobs they're offering help to train and advance the careers of Evanston people.
Thank you. I know Alderman.
Alderman Tandem has it right. The most important thing we can do if we want to talk about changing it is making sure that these are good jobs that are being created, that we have a career track, and it's not just a simple, task that anyone can do. I actually met with a local local business here. They're really interested in creating apprenticeship programs, for example, for surveying. This is land surveying and construction or code enforcement. We have the opportunity to actually create good jobs with local employers and build a career path for our individuals, so they aren't just, like Alderman Tandem was saying, just flag men, the ones that say stop or slow down at all the construction projects. So I'm in favor of changing the ordinance to make sure that we're having good jobs put in place for these local jobs.
You get $29 an hour for holding that flag, that's not a job.
Mr. Gaspard, you wanted to speak to that.
Yes, during the time that I was collecting signatures, I met about, by the civic center, I met about 2 gentlemen in a different occasion, different time. They were just laid off by a construction company. And thank God the spirit was really high. And one thing they were mentioning about this is construction company, let them go, be the one to go. I understand, Mr. Only thinking about, company would not mind to pay the fine. So me, I'm a college instructor. I currently teach social work research, social welfare policy. So why do I have a good in-depth understanding about public policy? So what I think I want to do as mayor, the mayor is supposed to be a cheerleader for the city and is such like as an agent for the city. What the company we can have done, Mr. Lonnie, is find competition with them. Find them other competitors. Give them a condition contract and find them other competitors. So I think we need to hire a percentage of employees supposed to be Evanstonian and or to be Evanstorian. If it's not, then okay, you gotta go. Well, I know you gotta go, but what I'm going to do, find some other company that provide the same service as you are and give you a competitor in town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gaspard. Mr. Smith wanted to weigh in on that.
I'm kind of a fiscal conservative by nature. That's a fancy word for saying I'm cheap. I got lucky in being able to come to Evanston, get a good job, but it wasn't always that way. Peter Braithwaite, the last time I spoke at Reba Church, said none of you should try to outpoor him, so I'm not going to do that. But the first house that my folks lived in, we didn't have sidewalks, there was ditches, and the roads were gravel, they weren't even paved. And the year I applied to college, my dad had 0 income, so I've always kept it in the back of my mind. You might be doing well one day, but you might be not doing so well the next. And I feel the government has to spend money like it was its own money. And if it did that, it wouldn't spend so much. The one time when I'm not a fiscal conservative is when it comes to stimulating the economy. I believe in buying local, and I believe in hiring local. Thank you. You keep money in the economy, and it comes back around to help you. These are our neighbors. These are our friends. If it's much cheaper to keep somebody employed than to deal with a foreclosure or to deal with an empty house that you've got kids and gangs breaking into. I talked to some of the same folks that Gary did when I was petitioning folks that have been laid off, and I support efforts to hire more. If our hands are tied by competitive bidding, by state or federal rules, that's one thing. But we're fond all the time of saying we're a home rule community. So if we can change something by our own ordinance to put more Evanstonians at work, by all means, let's do so.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Steve Haggerty wanted to weigh in.
Yeah, hi, as I didn't mention earlier, so I've had the really good fortune, right, of sort of living the American dream and going out on your own and starting a company. I did that 15 years ago, and it was just me. And I really have a tremendous amount of respect for the work that Robin Simmons is doing with Sunshine Enterprises, because it's working with people just like me, 15 years ago who had a dream and everything. And today, my company has 150 people around the country that are working on disasters. And we've got 20 people that are here at our headquarters right in Evanston. And we've got a workforce that's representative of Evanston right in our office. And we are a better company because of that. I'm going to talk to employers if I'm the mayor of this city, large employers, smaller employers, and I'm going to sell the people of Evanston and sell Evanston on these employers, attracting them here and hiring our employees, or hiring our residents. I do think that we need to focus on summer jobs for our youth, okay, and getting them in a position so that they have that pride of working hard and getting something and they develop a skill. I think we need to invest in programs like Hecky's and Nancy Baker's work ethic program. Not everybody's going to go to college, but there are great jobs out there that we all rely on that are in the trades and technical services. We need to make sure that our young people are getting that experience so they can lift off and start a really productive career in life. I also think that we need to make sure that we're working with our nonprofit organizations in town as well as the city and the grants that we're giving. And we are focusing on workforce development because we have other people, older people in this community that have skills and are looking for jobs. We need to possibly work with the community, sharpen those skills, and let's work so that we have minority businesses, women-owned businesses in this community that are not only serving Evanston, but the whole Chicagoland area or possibly the whole country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haggerty. I know Robin Rue asked to weigh in on that, and if there's another aldermanic candidate who would like to weigh in.
Thank you. So I agree that we can improve the policy for LEP, but I want to add that compliance was absolutely an issue. Over the last year or so, the committee has really been good about cracking down and collecting the fees. And at this point, the fund is somewhere around $70,000 or so. Those funds can be used for reimbursement for professional development. So as you spoke about not just being flaggers, if we get that message out to the community that you can be reimbursed for a professional certificate. So if there is a trade certificate or some sort of training through an accredited institution that can make you more marketable, improve your skill set, and increase your capacity to earn, the city will actually reimburse you for those fees. We recently expanded that, or the committee rather, recently expanded that to include paying for union dues for people that are in between jobs and unions. Sometimes that work is seasonal, and in the event that you have a barrier to get your union dues paid, the committee recently approved to pay that as well. So really, as some other candidates have stated, it's really a matter of getting that message out to the community and using the resources that are there. We have a real hyper-local community here, and we need to make sure that that is consistent on our hiring and our contracting. So committees are open meetings. I really challenge the community to go to these meetings and weigh in, have a voice. I really challenge everyone to be active in the process. I would really work with whomever is elected mayor to include more Fifth Ward residents in committee appointments, because our voice needs to be heard at that table so that we are included. Right now, we are not. And if we're there forming policy, weighing in on that, overseeing the budget, holding staff accountable, holding the other community partners accountable, then we can get to where we want to be in terms of local employment opportunities and minority contracting.
Thank you, Robin Rue. Carolyn Murray wanted to weigh on that one. Carolyn.
I think the question was about getting more employment for Evanston residents in these businesses. One of the issues that we're talking about is workforce development. From the ages of 18 to 30, are we looking at job opportunities and skill set training for those 4 jobs that are in demand? Technology, healthcare. We have a hospital there that is more than willing and have jobs posted online every day. What are we doing to put back into the equity of the young people that we have that traditionally cannot, second chance offenders? Are we really looking at this budget? $500,000 for youth and young adults, but $2 million for trees. What are we doing to invest into our young adults to get them stable employment? And we say all this stuff, however, the meaningful workplace is what we need. We don't need to create another business. We need to create trades and opportunities for them to actually work and do those things.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Almost Flotto, but I got caught in another mic. Thank you, Mr. Miller. I'm going to take one last question directed to the mayoral candidates. Alderman Brian Miller, Mr. Jeff Smith, Mr. Gary Gaspar, Alderman Mark Tenden, and Mr. Steve Haggerty. Lower property taxes were promised when Evanston began constructing all the large buildings. What happened? Mr. Gaspar.
I said, thank you. I said at the beginning, if you have economic development that you do not minus economic deprivation in there, you do not have economic development where you push people out and you bring new young, like Mr. Sutton said, you bring new professional centers, and then this is getting ridiculous. But this is what I want. I want a trade program for the Fifth Ward especially. For the Fifth Ward especially. Not to bring high-rise in the Fifth Ward, for the Fifth Ward residents. For the Fifth Ward, low income and seniors. That's what I want. If you have a justification where you build high-rise for new professional skills, this is not economic development for me.
Alderman Tenden?
Thank you. I think the unanticipated costs of all those new buildings, new residents, new problems that the city hadn't faced before certainly overwhelmed the system. Consider the fact that if a high-rise building with residents is higher than most, it's going to require special fire equipment. The taxing of our infrastructure, water delivery, waste removal, all of that has had a burden placed on it by these buildings, and the cost generated, the tax received of these buildings, does not outweigh the extended effects on our economy. So we have a crumbling infrastructure. I was hopeful during the Clinton administration's rise to power that we would somehow be able to take advantage of her plan to improve infrastructure. Not only is a much needed element in our community, but also designated toward job training. So we understand the problems, but I don't think necessarily that more, bigger, higher is better. It certainly is something to be weighed against the cost of maintaining it.
Thank you, Alderman Tenden. Mr. Steve Haggerty.
All right, for the record, I've never worked for the city. I never made a promise that everybody's taxes were going to go down. We're going to go down. I am concerned, obviously, if we're doing projects in this town and we're not considering all of the costs of those projects. Okay, the fire services, police services, and all of that. Because obviously, bringing new buildings into town, there are a lot of indirect costs that are part of it. But why haven't our taxes gone down yet we've had economic development in this town? I mean, I'll take a couple guesses, okay? The first guess would be that we have a $190 million pension liability in this city, right? For important people in the city that protect us in the city, firefighters and police officers and other people like that. But $190 million. And this city is actually, even though we're only 45% funded, we are doing a much better job than Chicago and other places, but we have a long way to go. So where did your tax decrease go? Well, some of it went into those pensions, right? We also have great people that work for our schools, our teachers. We have great people that work for the city, and there are labor agreements, right? And we all care about, affordability and the cost of living and so forth. And, some raises have been given to those people over time. And those labor costs, add up. We have healthcare costs. We all know what's going on across the country with healthcare. So, those are some of the reasons that possibly you haven't seen a tax decrease. Again, I continue to believe we need smart and sensible economic development in this community, and I continue to believe that we need someone as mayor who has a proven record and a steady hand of leadership, common sense, business sense, financial sense, compassion, and good judgment. And I think I can offer that to the city, and I would love to have your vote on February 28th. Thank you.
I'm really grateful to whoever asked that question, because some of us have been around the block. And again, I'm not running for grandfather-in-chief, although I am the only grandpa on the stage as of this August. Thank you. All right. But I remember when they were, I've been in this town and in the same house long enough to remember when they started some of these TIF districts, and we were promised that after 25 years, after decades, that trucks were going to back up to Evanston with truckloads of money and just shower it on us, and our taxes were going to go down because of the TIFs. And instead, it was treated like a payday loan, and the money was spent, and then again, long before the TIF ever got here and expired. So these TIFs expired, and we're not getting the benefit of it. So the question is, who's going to make the type of decisions, good or bad, now, that are going to play out into mistakes 25 years from now? And I looked just this last year. We had bids come in, completely wrong, apparently, on Green Bay Road, and then we went out and awarded a contract that was 25% more than we were planning to spend by borrowing money from the future. So we're continuing to make the same kind of mistakes. And I like and respect all my competitors on the stage, but with the exception of Mr. Tendon, who's been in the city council, up to 18 months ago, I did not see any of these folks showing up at any of the city council meetings. And if they had, they would have heard me saying 8 years ago that pretty much the same kind of thing was going to happen. We are paying the city manager of Evanston, Illinois, more than Illinois pays the governor of Illinois. We are paying the city attorney of Evanston more than the attorney general makes in Illinois. So they're not bad people, and people say, well, we're a wealthy community, but as Everett Dirksen used to say, $1 million here, $1 million there, pretty soon you're talking about real money.
Thank you, Jeff Smith. Alderman Miller.
So, I think we covered a lot of it. It goes back to what I was talking about before with our TIF districts. We've mortgaged our most productive areas for little benefit to the whole community. For example, Howard Street, we just approved a $1.6 million theater on Howard Street. I'm proud to be the only person on the city council that voted against that. We were going to TIF around the Noy Street L station to bring this Northlight Theater from Skokie back into downtown Evanston. I'm proud with Alderman Fisk. Her and I killed that TIF district as well. What we need to get our most productive property in terms of property taxes back on the tax rolls. Let's see the benefits of this supposed development, and let's reinvest that in some of our biggest problems, like our pension funds, like our crumbling parks, like our crumbling facilities. We need to put more money back into where our people use the services the most.
Please join me in thanking each of our mayoral candidates, Alderman Mark Tendon, Alderman Brian Miller, Mr. Jeff charge, Mr. Stephen Haggerty. We're going to move on to the clerk to introduce the clerk introductions. They're going to come right center stage as we shift. Bear with us. Thank you. I know it's a little hot in here. Thank you for your patience. It just speaks to how serious this election is for each and every one of us. Thank you for being with us tonight. We're going to end a little bit later than normal at 9:30. So we're going to have the clerk candidates, and then if there's any room for any of your other questions. We did not get, and I will say it again, we did not get to every question. There are still a plethora here. We're going to start with Mr. Devin Reed, and also Clerk Rodney Green is going to follow him in 2-minute introductions. Mr. Reed.
How is everyone tonight? How are you guys? My name is Devon Reed, and I'm running for city clerk here in Evanston because the city clerk's office, thank you guys, the city clerk's office is one of the most important offices here in Evanston that no one's talking about, that we don't understand. How many folks, by raise of hand, have heard, know what the clerk's office does? Or have, that's a good percentage of people. I'm glad we have an informed electorate. How many of you guys have submitted a FOIA request? How many of you guys know what a FOIA request is? If you don't know what, actually I want people to raise their hands if you don't know what a FOIA request is. Right? So there's a number of people in here who don't know what a FOIA request is. So we talked about a lot of information tonight. We talked about MWEBE. Robin mentioned that a lot. How many of you know what that is? Not a lot of us know what that is. The clerk's office is an office where you can come to get information about your government, to make sure that when businesses get contracts from the city, that they live up to their commitments to hire folks from our city. You can get that information from the clerk's office. You get information regarding anything and everything that you can think of. The information, if you want it, comes from the clerk's office. I'll tell you a bit about myself. I was born here in the 5th Ward. The 5th Ward is a historic black community. My family came here in the early 1900s. I was raised by my great-grandmother, my grandmother, and my mother, 3 generations of Evanstonians who taught me the values of public service. My great-grandmother was someone who let people come into our house and live with us when they fell on tough times. My great-uncle was the first black judge in Michigan, someone who means a lot to me, and I spent a lot of time with me when I was younger, instilling these values in me. When I was a teenager, my family struggled with homelessness, and we were forced to leave Evanston. So if you look at that statistic of 3,000 people leaving Evanston, my family's a part of that. But I'm out of time, and I'm not going to step on her toes. So please, we'll get into more with questions.
Well, I have to apologize. Devon Reed. Devon, let's give a bigger hand to Devon Reed. Thank you very much. Clerk Rodney Green. Welcome, Clerk Rodney Green.
Give you a little history about myself. I'm not born and raised Evanstonian. I'll probably die and still not be an Evanstonian. But I came from Washington, D.C., home of the fantastic Redskins. I also went by Atlanta, Georgia, through Emory University. I worked for Northwestern University for 20 years, teaching doctors and med students surgical skills to get hearts ready for transplants. When I left there in 2008, then I applied for the position as city clerk. Since being a city clerk here, I've made some progress. When I came on board, the previous city clerk had left. I had to learn on my own. So what I did is I took a lot of classes with other clerks around the country, around the international story, where then I learned what the city clerk could do, how he could do the job better, and how I could do work for the people of Evanston. My whole 8 years of being a city clerk has been, for me, all that work has been done for you, the citizens of Evanston. I've given you online rent forms that you can go online to fill out your real estate transfer tax. I've opened up the doors so we can do passport forms for you. We've opened the doors also, changed the hours so that we can allow for those people who could not come on regular times to come at later times during the day. And we're starting to even open up the day one Saturday a month to also handle for those people who can't come during the week. So it's a good thing that I'm working for the community. I know how it takes to bring a community up, and I do believe that it takes a community to raise a child. I am a surrogate father to all the kids on my block who are now grown, have children of their own. I took them to the parks. I know what they're talking about. I know what they do. We know who lives in our neighborhoods. We know who don't belong in the neighborhoods, and it's up to the neighborhood to make sure it's clear. Now, you're right. Devin Reed said that we can get all the information we need from the city clerk, but there's some things the clerk can't do. We can get to that later. Thank you.
As a follow-up to your introductions, there's a question from the audience. I know that each of you mentioned not where you live, but that occurs you were residents of Evanston. The audience wants to know what ward you live in and for how long currently.
Well, I've been in Ward 5 since 1988. Came from Washington, D.C. by way of Atlanta, Georgia, and then Ward 5. I've been living in the same address in 2016 for the past 12 years. I lived at 2021 across the street, my mother-in-law's house before we moved out. So we're right across the street, and I know the neighborhood well here.
So I currently live in the 8th Ward. Yeah, the 8th. So I live in the 8th Ward. Like I said, I was born and raised in the 5th Ward. My family, when I think after elementary school, we were forced to move to Roseland, and I moved back to Evanston in 2013, so a few years ago.
Thank you. If elected, how different will your vision be than the current administration for the clerk's role? Mr. Reed, would you like to start?
I think as someone who's not a part of the current administration, it's fitting that I start. Yes, so I see the office of the clerk as I think the office needs to become an active participant in creating progressive policy here in Evanston. In the age when in less than 24 hours, we're going to have Donald Trump take over as president, we need every elected official standing up for us, making sure that government is in your hands. I truly see the way that we operate government now is there's a top-down hierarchy. The clerk's office can change that and make sure that the power is in your hands to hold your elected officials accountable to your needs. And that is the biggest difference in the clerk's office. So it's a difference in philosophy and mindset, and having someone in the office who is going to work tirelessly to make sure that your needs are met and that you have access to the information that you need.
Well, right now, the clerk's office is very transparent. We have given all the information anybody comes through and wants. So my vision for this continue the next 4 years if reelected, to make sure that same progress is still going on. There is nothing that you can't find or don't need that the clerk can give you. But there are also things that the clerk can't do. The clerk cannot make policy. The clerk cannot make ordinances, cannot do resolutions. The clerk has a silent voice, but as being a clerk, you can still get out in the neighborhood and talk to your neighbors. That's what I've been doing so far in the clerk's office now. I'm going to continue to do that. I do disperse information when I find out about it. You find out about it. Because again, I'm in it for you, the citizens of Evanston.
This is a show of hands question. Who, if you have experience working with the Spanish-speaking community, raise your hand. Would somebody like to explain how?
So my experience with Spanish speakers is living with them. When I was, later on in my life, I became a foster kid, and I lived with a Latino family for 6 years. And so, I can say, hola, mi nombre es Evan Reed, soy candidato para el city clerk aquí in Evanston. So I can speak a little bit. My Spanish is more suited for wake up, go to school, take out the trash, and clean the dishes. So I have a ton of experience, working with Latinos, with the Latino community, and I love the Latino culture and food and the whole 9 yards. So, yes.
Oh, wait, I'll have to answer. So after I graduated from college, I moved to Evanston, Indiana, where I was a community organizer. And this was it was before President Obama made it really cool, so I like to think he was a better lawyer, but I was actually a better organizer. But I worked with a coalition of churches in the area, some Latino congregations, worked on various issues like making sure that our code enforcement laws were basically spread through the whole city, worked on educational pilot programs, worked on a variety of issues. So I have some experience working with the Latino population.
I've been in a general practice of law in the Evanston area for 21 years, and I've probably knocked on 10,000 doors minimum in different political campaigns. One of the blessings of my varied life has been everything that I've heard from average folks from all walks of life. And you can't do that without, of course, running into many representatives of our growing and welcomed Spanish-speaking population. I don't claim to speak Spanish. Did well enough to get through one trip to Mexico, and it was horrifying. They're still talking about it down there. That's all the manual of the language. But for a while, I was one of the only folks you could find around here who, if you were looking for somebody to take an employment case on the plaintiff's side, there weren't as many doing it, and so I had more than my share. And of course, during the housing crisis, it impacted many newer home buyers disproportionately, and many of those were some of our newer residents and citizens. So I've had exposure to all cultures and walks of life, and that's one of the reasons I'm running for mayor.
Currently, I teach at Northeastern Illinois University. This is a school that is known for Spanish right now, for some of you know that. In my classroom, there are like even a good 60-70% Spanish, Hispanic students. And prior to that, that's where I graduated, that's where I went for undergrad. And most of my friends are Hispanics. And one good friend of mine who was from Puerto Rico, he always said that what they call me is Espanol. They don't call you Spanish because from where I came from, I was born and raised in Haiti. The island called Hispaniola. So we eat the same food. We like merengue. We like salsa. So I don't need to tell you anything more about the Spanish. And when I go to McDonald's, I can only say, ¿Cómo se dice? ¿Cómo se dice español? They understand me. Sometimes they think that I speak good Spanish, but I think I speak more than them. Thank you. So in other words, how do you say so?
Thank you. My experience with the Spanish community, Spanish-speaking community in Evanston has primarily been cultural. I have, for many years, reached out and attended events hosted by the Spanish-speaking community, Mexican community, Jalisco and Evanston, brought to us by our friend Hector Garcia, who also serves in the Parks and Rec Board. I am very fond of Spanish culture in terms of its great beauty and passion, something you don't find in the culture I was brought up in. And so I think that, as far as actually reaching out and helping, I've helped Latino Resources and Elena Garcia Sani with her efforts to find a home at the Civic Center for Latino Resources and to support her scholarship program as well. So there are a lot of opportunities out there in the Latino community, Spanish-speaking community, and I enjoy engaging and learning more and more every day.
Thank you. You know how you go through life and you have regrets. One of my biggest regrets is for 4 years in college, my roommate was a wonderful person, still is, Enrique Freun from Latin America. And he said when I was a freshman, he said, Steve, why don't I teach you Spanish? And as far as we ever made it, he taught me enough Spanish so we could say something like, es bonita derecha, so we could go around and he could point out all the pretty girls on campus to me. I have been, like Mark, to some of the different events, cultural events here in the community. I have, as part of my job, working with communities around this country after disasters. Obviously, we've had a lot of hurricanes and so forth down south. There's a lot of Spanish-speaking folks down south, and we've worked with those communities. I have folks that work for my company, again, a diverse workforce of folks. I will just go back to the comment that I made at the beginning, that it is a fabric. And those communities that really grow and do well have a tapestry. And we are building that. We have a strong fabric here. We can continue to build that. And I'd like the opportunity to do that with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. My engagement with the Latino community is they are my neighbors. I live within a 1-block radius of my home. I would say that it's predominantly Latino. And we are raising our families together. We're dealing with community concerns together. I've also employed Latinos in town and worked with them on construction contracts. And I have a surrogate son who is actually Mexican, my son's best friend. So I have really grown in community, raised my family with the Latino community. And, you know, we're looking to make a better community together. Right in the 5th Ward, we have a very strong Latino community, and I really admire how they stick together. I really admire how they have come into the community and have pride in home ownership and develop their businesses. And I look to grow more in learning what their needs are and being a voice for them as well.
So the history that I have with my Latino neighbors is with community service. Off the top of my head, I would say the most recent project we did was the Safety Palooza. I helped my neighbor with 50-50 project for his sidewalk. They come, I've had to liaise on 2 issues. One side was more of a preventive for criminal activity that I heard the concerns of one of my neighbors. And then on the flip side, we had the undesirable Latino family that was causing a lot of crime and gun violence in our community. So for the most part, through the years, as a co-chair working and listening to the concerns of the community, that is part of it. They come to me, there was one particular time, they knocked on my door and they said, well, Carolina, somebody broke into my car. So I'm looking and I'm like, well, did you call the police? They're like, no, we just came to see you. So that relationship that they have, that trust, once they give it to you, it is very loyal, it's very ongoing, because definitely as you knock on doors, as you engage with the community, the Latino representation is here. And it's a wonderful thing. It brings our diversity.
So I actually have family who live in Mexico, and so I've actually worked in Mexico with Latino people. I was assisting in event planning. If anyone needs a quinceañera, I can help you with that. I also, as a teenager, volunteered as a translator for new Spanish-speaking families who came to my town as part of a construction project, so that they were able to share their concerns with the city. And as an adult, when I worked at Shape Magazine, I worked alongside Shape Español.
Well, my mother was born and raised in Panama, and so I consider myself part Hispanic and African American or Black. Through real estate and some of the connections through my mother, I've worked with quite a few Latino families, helping them buy houses, some even on the street that I live on now. And through the youth football program, I've met quite a few Hispanic families, very good people. And like I said, the 5th Ward has always been a place, as most have already said, that has welcomed every culture into the community.
Appreciate it. In closing, we'd like to ask each candidate in your words, and we'll start with the clerk. We'll start with Clerk Green, and then Devin Reed, and then move, and we'll just do it right here in the middle. So I'm going to ask you gentlemen to kind of move and leave this middle center. In 2 minutes, if you can, 2 to 3, tell us in closing why you personally choose to either continue or run and serve as a public servant?
Well, the reason I decided I want to continue to run as a city clerk is because I think that what has been accomplished in the city clerk's office can continue on. I believe that there's still things to be done. There are things that has to be changed. There are things that we need to get correct. I also believe that the city clerk is the liaison between the community and the government entity. If there's anything you need to know about passports, FOIAs, certifications, notifications, notarizations, any documents that you need to know about, the clerk's office has those. We don't process everything that comes through, but we do have the facilities to give you what you need. And I believe that still holding the clerk's office for the next 4 years will give me the opportunity to continue to grow in my experience, in my knowledge, and in the technology that I'm bringing to the clerk's office as I bought it when I first came into it. We reorganized the office. We've made bigger changes. We've included folk. We've become more transparent than we were before. We have made steps forward that we believe that the community itself will get a better understanding of what the clerk's office is. Because I do know that most folk did not know what the clerk did. When I first ran for the office, I knocked on doors and they said, oh, the clerk only takes minutes. I said, no, the clerk does more than that. We do everything but wash windows and clean toilets. But as that goes on, we say that the clerk's office is the place to get the information you need. I intend to keep doing that, and I'm looking for your vote for me to continue as clerk in the election of April 4, 2017. Thank you.
Great, I have 3 minutes to talk about policy now, in closing argument. So that is exactly why I'm running, for policy. And the idea that the clerk's office can't introduce or change policy is a fallacy. The clerk's office can change policy within its own office. And one of those things, that when we talk about transparency, is making sure that more information is available and accessible to you online. Every time one of you, I asked a question earlier about FOIA, every time someone comes into the office and requests something through FOIA, the city spends money, about $610 for every FOIA request. And we can save that money by making sure that the information is online and easily accessible, so when you come into the office, if I'm elected, you know, I'll tell you exactly, I'll give you a link where you can find it, so we don't spend city resources providing you information you have. And we have a long way to go with transparency. If any of you have ever looked at the city's budget, you know, at the budget information that's online, you know that a lot of information is missing. You have to go digging for information, and you have to come to the clerk's office if you're truly concerned about making sure the information is correct and handled correctly. Secondly, I want to make sure that we create a legislation tracker. Right now, if you want to know how your aldermen have voted on legislation, you have to read the minutes potentially, read through a long document, or you have to talk to somebody. There is no easy way to see how votes were cast. There's no easy way to track legislation that's moving through our city. And the clerk's office, as the records keeper for Evanston, can take leadership on that. Lastly, as the local election official, 9 out of 10 Evanstonians did not turn out to vote in the last local election. We can truly make a difference with an active clerk in increasing voter participation and clearing up the mess that, and also with candidates clearing up the mess that happened here in this election with the confusion around the filing dates, with confusion around when the election was actually going to take place. And as the local election official, I will make sure that you all know how to access your government, know how to run for office, know how to get a referendum on the ballot, and know how, when, and where to vote so we can take our city back and make it a city that is truly representative of our Evanston values. Thank you.
We can put our hands together again for our clerk, Rodney Green, and our candidate for clerk, Devin Reed. We're going to hear from the alderman candidates now. Robin Roode.
Thank you. I'm running because I want to make the 5th Ward as livable as the rest of the city of Evanston. We are celebrating so much, And I want to make sure that we are included. It's important to me. It's very important to me that we grow our business districts. We have Church and Dodge, we have Emerson, we have Simpson, we have Noyes and Maple and Foster. Those business districts are not being fairly represented. We need to improve them, and we need to make them as attractive as the rest of the districts in town with increased facade improvements and interior improvements and funding that can support their businesses and scale them. I'm running so that we don't have an additional 3,000 black residents leave Evanston because of lack of affordable housing and livable wage jobs. I'm running so that the city is accountable and businesses and other organizations in town are accountable to include us in the master plan, to create opportunities so that we can grow and enjoy all this great in Evanston. I'm running because I care about the 5th Ward. I moved back intentionally to make a difference. I've worked hard over the several years, over the last 15 years, particularly the last several years, I've worked hard to understand the process. I've shadowed the great work that Alderman Holmes has been doing. I understand that the work is being done at a committee level, and I've served on committee. I've invited folks to come to committee meetings. I want to work to improve all the work that has been done that's great. And I have been preparing myself. I've served on the executive board at nonprofits in town. I've created jobs. I've brought funding to the city of Evanston. I've partnered with other organizations to bring programming to the city of Evanston that supports our most vulnerable residents. That's what I've done before I've been in office. I've been following this. I've been educating myself. I've been attending city council meetings and ward meetings and committee meetings. I've been fighting even at a county level for the increase in the minimum wage and did so successfully, $13 an hour minimum wage at a county level. This is what I've been doing already before elected, and I hope that I can earn your vote so that I can improve in that as 5th Ward Alderman. Thank you.
For over 11 years, I have hosted the ward meetings. I've heard your issues, I've heard your concerns. We have acted on the most influential events that the city has seen, from gun buybacks to National Night Out to any issue or concern that has been brought to me by the ward. We have addressed it. We have made an event, we have been a voice, and I want to continue to do that. There has not been a day that has went by with my communication with Alderman Holmes that she has not stifled me in order to be that representation. I can't imagine what I would do if I did not have that liberty. So the only and the most appropriate thing that I can continue to do for the ward is to become the alderman. I understand that there are communication issues that we have from residents and businesses as I go out into the community. That is one of the major concerns. They have no idea what's going on. They have no idea what benefits there are out there for them. Now, do we see a spike? Yes, if there's a homicide, it's standing room only at a ward meeting. But if there's issues that concern the budget, that concern resources that are available, parks and recreation, you might not see too many of them. And that's unfortunate. But why? Because I need to motivate you to understand that all of us together can make a difference.
So for me, it was the election. I spoke about this before, but so I have a transgender son, and he's one of many people who have been affected. Sorry, the reason I'm feeling like this is because the day after the election, somebody tied a scarf around him and pushed him down the stairs at his school. One of my other neighbors, who is black, was downtown, and two men with armbands called him the N-word for the first time in his life. Every time I have to go outside, I have to see my neighbors, the friends that my kids play with, who are really going to lose out. I go to my Girl Scout troops and I see the girls there, and it's the same situation. I'm not really very comfortable being in the public. If I seem nervous up here, it's because this did not come naturally to me. But I couldn't do nothing anymore. guys shouldn't either. So I understand people are questioning the fact that I'm a newcomer, but I want you to know that that has no bearing on my commitment. Even before I petitioned to run, I'm fortunate enough now that I have a husband who can support our family. We decided that my role for the next 4 years, if it's not this, it will be something, would be in service, because we all have to be working to make sure these really awful things aren't going to happen to our community.
It's not often that we get an opportunity to make a change in our city government. I'm standing here tonight, as I've had with the other 4 people in this room, that have been consistently going to meetings for 20 years, writing letters, answering phone calls at night, and serving my community. If you want service, you better vote for Sutton. As I look up here also, we have a saying in our black community, it's called disappearing acts. I want to hold a mural up to everyone tonight. I want to see you at city council meetings like I've been going to for 20 years. Because we won't see some of these people again to 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your time and coming out today. Why am I running? I'm running for my children. I'm running for all the kids that I represent in my youth program. I'm running for you. I'm running for people who don't like me. I'm running for people who love me. I'm running for everybody who wants to see change. I will stand up for our community. I will be a strong community member. I'll be a strong alderman. I believe that if we come there prepared and are willing to speak our mind and not back down, then we will improve the 5th Ward. When you look at the 5th Ward compared to other communities in Evanston, we look slightly impoverished, but we're not impoverished. There are great people that live in the 5th Ward, very talented people, talented people that's in the room. It's guys here that can do great things, building houses and working on houses. A few guys that worked on my house that I've worked with in business deals. So there's a lot of talent in the 5th Ward, and I believe that I can get the people out, I can get the people coming back. I mean, everybody in here comes to meetings, come to board meetings, and come to events like this. But I believe I can get people who don't come to the board meetings, who don't get involved. I believe I can get them involved. And I believe that I have the strongest voice, and that's why I think I should be the 5th Ward Alderman.
Again, thank you everyone for staying tonight. It's amazing that everyone's still here too, considering how late it is, so I appreciate that. My name is Brian Miller again, I'm running for mayor. This is the why question. You know, this is the why stand up and what drives and motivates you. And I was lucky enough, and I consider the words privileged, and I use that term meaningfully. I was privileged to really grow up at the YMCA. I did everything at the Y you could do. One of the things that my favorite things to do was I went to Camp Echo. And I went basically until I went to college. And I became a counselor at camp. And my first cabin, I had, his name was Brian Warren. Brian was the star of Camp Echo. He was literally taller than I was, so he's playing basketball with the counselors. He was dunking on the counselors. I mean, it was just, he ran camp. And every night at camp, what we did was we had something called Taps Talk, which is before we went to sleep at night, we had a conversation about something that happened that day. We posed a question. So I posed a question to my kids this day. I said, you know, if you had 3 people you could have dinner with, who would they be? And alive that evening. Most of the time people will talk about, you know, XYZ sports player or maybe musician or whoever. But these kids they're older kids, so they're talking about, you know, I would have dinner with my uncle who I never knew, or my grandmother who died a couple years back. Brian is crying while this is going on. He talks about he would have dinner with his friend who was killed. Brian grew up on the south side of Chicago. Unfortunately, he got involved in gang life. He was able to escape that. We put him in the same place at Camp Echo, and he thrived. And I sat to myself and I said, you know what? I was lucky enough to be born in the 6th Ward of Evanston. Again, privileged to be born in the 6th Ward of Evanston. This kid was from the south side. And he had the same opportunities that I did, and he thrived as a result of that. So I said to myself, I'm going to make sure that won't happen to anybody else, that no other kid has to go through that situation. And I lost him. I was in high school. I lost touch with him, couldn't keep touch with him. He went back to the streets. The why I'm doing this is because we lose too many kids like Brian Warren every day in our city. I'll get it. So every single day I have a picture of Brian in my desk. And every single day I work to make sure that we don't have any more Brian Warrens in our city, our county, or whatever we can. That's why I'm running. And I'd be honored to have your vote.
I almost didn't make this race. It would have been very easy not to make this race. It was a rough summer, late summer. Both my dad and my oldest friend in the world passed away, and I spent more time with doctors and accountants and cleaning up some mess than I would have liked to. Had an aging mother that I'm still dealing with. But I've been a public servant. There's no greater calling than public service. I've been both inside and outside of government, and I know that you can get more done in one day of boring bureaucracy than you can in a month of banging on the doors from the outside. And I've done plenty of banging on the doors from the outside. If you elect me, you'll elect the candidate who probably has more experience at trying to get bad government to change its ways than any other candidate on this stage. I had the pleasure of working for the state of Illinois for the last year and a half of the Quinn administration. I worked hand in hand with a police department. My department actually had 115 police officers working for it. We had a police shooting. We had to deal with things going on in that department that had been done wrong for many, many years. And I can't tell you what a pleasure it was. At my age, I was pulling all-nighters. I probably put in easily 2,000 hours during the year, and I would do it again. I would do it again for half the salary that they paid me, because there's nothing more rewarding than being able to fight for the people. I believe in change from the bottom up. That's been the philosophy of my political existence. I've had the pleasure or the silliness of running for office multiple times, and all the times that I've run in Evanston, but one, I carried Evanston. I ask for your vote again. This is the first time that I've ever run in Evanston and only in Evanston, but my philosophy is the same. I pulled this out from 1994. It says, if you want change, that was long before I hosted a coffee for Barack Obama, who would run on change. If you want to wait for change, the only thing that's going to wait is your hair will get a little grayer. If you want change, you've got to come out and vote for it. I'm asking for your vote so that we can make change in Evanston and help make this town into the great, amazing place we all know it can be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out here and giving the opportunity to listen to us. Gentlemen, thank you so much, and good job. Thank you, Mr. Evanston. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Gary Gasper. I'm running for mayor of Evanston, and I need your vote. Why? I'm one of you. I'm one of you. How? Sometimes I go around the city, and some people think, just because I have an accent, they think I'm somebody different. No, I'm not different. I've been living in this city for 34 years. I came into this, I was born and raised in Haiti, and I came in when I was 20 years old with a visa, and I stayed over the visa. Nowadays, with Donald Trump, immigrants like myself, when I was in the citizens, we are big rap. But this is what I did. I stayed, I drove a taxi for 17 years. Then I taught myself GED, get myself to college. As soon as I get myself to college, the same semester, I was elected to a statewide university, a statewide committee representing Northeastern. A year later, I become student body president. If you want to know what kind of person I am, please ask anybody who goes to Northeastern, or Northeastern, staff and student, whoever it is. And I am one of you. I'm one of you because I want to see change. I'm one of you because I want to protect you. I'm one of you because I want to be an inspiration. I want to be something that what the society expects from you. This is what I do. This is what I say. Martin Luther King dream for the little children will be judged by the content of the character, not the color of the skin. It's a speech. We never talked about that, but it's a speech of accountability. It tells you that you have to have accountability. You have to set yourself a character. So they don't judge you. If they judge you by skin, they're at fault. Me, I've done everything that people want to do, living like a black man, go to school, get a degree. Now I'm teaching, and don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. I am not going to represent you. Don't tell me that. And again, thank you, Ms. Chavez. Again, I need your support. This Sunday, I'm having my kickoff party at Kirk's Cafe, 2922 Central Street, from 4 to 6. I'm inviting all of you. We can have more questions. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank again Alderman Holmes, Mr. Ruff, Ms. Chambers, and anyone else who put this terrific event together tonight. Great job, and thank you so much. I've had 8 years almost as a council member, and my experience is really what matters to me. And I think it's what matters to a lot of voters or potential voters. I have a card over here with the entire backside listing my experiences throughout my lifetime, but specifically those experiences on council committees I've served on, etc. I suppose, it's been an honor to represent the 6th Ward, but as I have grown in that position, I have wanted more and more to be involved in citywide issues even more. And I know with being an alderman that does come with some limitations, but I've tried my best to engage in housing and other issues that are citywide concerns. Economic development, that's a citywide concern. That said, I have often been disappointed in some of the responses I've had from my own constituents when they really don't have a sense of community. It's really, I hear from them only when it's about themselves. I think if there's one thing I learned from Alderman Holmes is that we all have to own this community. She's very fond of ownership. And to me that means there is no shortage of affordable housing in the 5th Ward. There's a shortage of affordable housing in Evanston. There's no homelessness in the 3rd Ward. There's a homelessness issue in Evanston. We all need to take ownership of these problems and look at ourselves as not representatives or members of a ward, but as a whole community. My problems are your problems, and your problems are mine. I hope that you will consider me when you go to the polls on February 28th. It's coming up very quickly, and that we will prevail, and hopefully I will be your next mayor. Thank you.
Misty, I just want to say, in my opinion, you are as much an Evanstonian as anyone in this room. Okay? I was really touched by your remarks. I can tell you, I too sort of feel the same way you do. I've been here for 17 years. Okay? The first thing that I did to really get involved in this community is I did Leadership Evanston, a great program run by the Evanston Community Foundation. And one of the first exercises in that program, and Mark Tendam and I were both in the same class, Mark will remember, you had to draw something that was your sense of community here in Evanston. And so it was really interesting. People would draw things like, ETHS. People would draw things like Camp Echo or the YMCA. Okay? And then it came to me. And remember, I've been working with communities all over this country, helping them recover after disasters. I don't know many people in my own community. It's why I'm doing Leadership Evanston.